Hello, everybody. So we are continuing our video series here today, talking about each AFC North team and how good can they be coming into the 2021 NFL season. So as you can tell by my hat, I'm going to say it right off of the bat. I'm going to get it out there clear. I am a Browns fan. So if you're the kind of Steelers fan who, if somebody says anything negative about your team at all, you flip out and say they know nothing, just go ahead and click off. I got no problem if you don't want to watch, because I'm not going to be a hater. I'm going to be realistic here, and I want to talk about specifics, and I want to talk about some of these storylines and potential situations. I'm not going to just sit here and hate, but I'm saying if you're going to be this type of fan that can't talk about your team and can't listen to any criticism, and you're just going to be in the comment section screaming about stuff you have no clue about, just go ahead and click off. I got no problem with it. Listen, if you want to talk about the Browns and some real issues that we have, I got no problem talking about that. So I don't know why you guys wouldn't have a problem being realistic with your team. I talked about the Bengals, and I had Bengals fans who was like, yeah, and pretty much agreed with me. And I was not sitting there saying the Bengals are going to be the greatest team ever. I was realistic. I was critical to an extent. I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to treat everybody the same. So I've already talked about the Browns, talked about the Bengals a little bit, talking about the Steelers today, and I'll be talking about the Ravens eventually. So we're going to get into the Steelers. How good can they be in 2021? So the Steelers last year had quite the interesting season, right? Was very dominant early on, was undefeated for a long time, and then it seemed like things went downhill pretty quick. You got on a bad losing streak. We know the story of what happened now. You lose to the Browns get in the playoffs, and then the Browns beat you on your home field in an ugly game, and I don't care what anybody wants to say, that was an ugly game. You can argue with me all you want. I watched it. I rewatched it. I watched highlights because as a Browns fan, it was fantastic. So it was a weird season for the Steelers. Now, coming into this season, the question of Big Ben was kind of the focus of the offseason. Was he going to retire? Was he going to come back? Did the Steelers even want him? These were legitimate conversations. Now, the Steelers did restructure his contract. He will be back, and we're going to get into him later. But as far as what the Pittsburgh Steelers lost in the offseason, so these are some guys that I kind of singled out, and there are more, right? So if you're in the comment section saying, well, what about this guy? Yes, okay, this is not everybody. I just listed out a few guys that I think could be potential impact players that they lost. So let's start off, number one, Bud Dupree. Bud Dupree signed a big deal with the Tennessee Titans, and I can't fault the Steelers for letting him go. He's been injured, right? And when he's on the field, I think he's really, really good. I think he's actually very underrated. He's one of these guys that because he was a number 2 to TJ Watt, he kind of was overlooked a little bit. And I think Bud Dupree is really going to maybe not make his name known in Tennessee is the right way to say it, but he's going to live up, in my opinion, to what they signed him for. So the Steelers could not give him that number, even if they wanted him to, or even if they wanted to and bring him back, they just couldn't do it. And like I said, you have TJ. That makes that number 2 spot opposite of Watt a little bit easier to let go. And I know Steelers fans thought they were getting J.J. Watt, and I'm not going to say if that was a real possibility or not. I really don't know what to tell you there. But losing Bud Dupree was something that was probably going to happen. And given what teams thought he was worth, good for Bud Dupree. It's not really a Steelers problem to deal with there. Marquise Pouncey retires. Again, this is something that wasn't the Steelers' fault. Him and his brother decided it was time to hang him up. And that's going to be interesting to see how they fill that hole. Now, we'll talk about the draft later, but Marquise Pouncey's a guy that Big Ben and him had a great relationship other than the first snap of the playoff game. I'm sorry, I had to throw it in there. Your center-quarterback relationship is one that is kind of a overlooked important thing there, in football. You got to be on the same page there. So that's an interesting thing to pay attention to. I'm not going to say it's a huge deal, but I will say that it is something to pay attention to. So they lose Steven Nelson. This is one that I think from a outsider's perspective, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Steven Nelson is a guy who I think is really, really talented. I watch his game, and I really, really like it. I think he's a guy that they could have really had long-term, and I'm not saying he's going to be a superstar or even a star, but he's a really, really good contributor player who I think can do a lot of good things for you. So them losing him is interesting because they also lost Mike Hilton. I think Steven Nelson is better than Mike Hilton, in my personal opinion, but to me, when you look at Joe Hayden and his age, Hayden's got a lot of good years. Well, maybe not a lot of good years, but Hayden can still be a good player for you. I just look at these two younger guys, and especially Steven Nelson, and I say, I really don't know about that one. So the Steelers lose their tackle, Andrew Villanueva. Did I say that right? I think I did. To the Baltimore Ravens. And, I'm not going to say that he was the greatest player. At one time, he was very good. He was really, really good. But it seemed like he kind of dipped off a little bit towards the end. I was a little bit surprised that they got rid of him, and that could just be me. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to be as huge of a loss because they have guys ready to go to step up in those roles, specifically to fill that spot. I did think it was funny, though, that he took a shot at Juju, now that he's on the Ravens. And I'll talk about the Ravens later, and we'll get into that. But Andrew Villanueva, I'm not even going to try to say it again. You get what I'm saying. The reason why I think it is kind of important is just because of the position that he plays. And even if you do have backup plans, how are these guys going to fill in and handle that starting role? That's the question. So Steelers lose running back James Conner to the Arizona Cardinals. So the Steelers obviously drafted Najee Harris. He's going to be their starter. Talk about that more in a little bit. But the fact that James Conner signed for so little, I think, is the real thing to pay attention to here. They have guys, right? They drafted Benny Snell a few years ago. They have the guy from Maryland, I want to say, the guy who torched Ohio State. And those guys are fine. They're all right. And I know there's some Steelers fans who are like, no, man, Benny Snell, holy crap, he's going to be a beast. Cool. Think that. I don't care. You're allowed to be a fan. But the reality is those guys aren't your starters. They can be key contributors every once in a while, but they're not going to be your starters. So the fact that they let James Conner go, given the fact that what he signed for, I'm surprised they didn't bring him back on that cheap deal to kind of go with a 1-2 punch with him and Najee Harris, with Najee starting, obviously. But now you're going to have Najee taking the load here. And, yeah, he's a great player and all, but, I'm just kind of surprised because the vibe I was getting from Steelers fans was they loved James Conner. Everybody thought he was great. I remember when I had people telling me James Conner was going to be way better than Nick Chubb. And obviously we know where that's turned out. Hindsight's 20/20, but I just think it's interesting, given the number he signed for, that they wouldn't bring him back on a deal like that. That's kind of the thing I was kind of looking into there. So the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted Najee Harris, obviously, and listen, Najee Harris, I think, is going to be a Pro Bowl level running back for years to come. Great player. Loved him at Alabama. Think he's going to be a stud. Obviously, I'm frustrated that he ended up with the Steelers because, kind of like Mac Jones looked like a Patriots quarterback. Najee Harris looks like a Steelers running back. I mean, before the draft, you looked at him and go, okay, he just looks like a Steeler. And, what I talked about with Najee, or not with Najee, with James Conner, is now it's going to be all on Najee to take this load, right? And with the offensive line being the way it is, you're going to have a few new You're going to have a few new pieces. There's going to be some shifting around and whatnot. How is he going to handle taking such a big role in this offense? Because I think he is going to be the focal point of the offense. And Benny Snell, sure, he can come in for a few plays. You know, the Maryland kid whose name I can't remember for the life of me, sure, he could come in for a few plays. But I just think that Najee is going to be in a situation where he's going to be asked to do a lot. And can he live up? Yes, he absolutely can live up. He is that good. But sometimes with the star running backs that get drafted early, they have such high expectations that they can't necessarily hit their stride as early as people hope. That's kind of what I'm worried about here with Najee Harris. I think that he's in a situation where he's going to get used so much. How is he going to adjust? And can he adjust that quickly? That's kind of my concern with him. I think he's going to be a great player. You know, take the Browns-colored glasses off. He's going to be one of the best running backs in the NFL. And I'm excited for him as a player to see his future because he is so talented. So, anyway, the Pittsburgh Steelers take tight end Pat Freiermuth from Penn State. This is kind of the one that I was like, really? Like, okay, if this is where you want to go, I would have taken a lineman there, given some of the names that were still available at that point. But Pat Freiermuth, you know, he was clearly the second best tight end in the draft, but it was pretty big dip off there from 1 to 2 and then 2 to everybody else. And it's not that he's not a good player, because he is. I just think in 2020 he had high expectations, and I think everybody had high expectations for him. And I feel like Penn State didn't live up to their expectations, and he didn't either. And I think just because of that, that's going to be kind of the thing that I'm concerned about if I would be a Steelers fan with this pick is, okay, he's obviously got a lot of talent, and he's got a lot that you can like there, but how is he going to be able to adjust? Because I think the Steelers are hoping that he can be a big part of the offense, given Big Ben and given where he's at this point in his career. Because of the offensive line problems, you're going to have to get the ball out, quickly. And you're going to use your tight ends a lot. You know, I think that's just what it is. So we'll see with Pat Freiermuth. Like I said, I wouldn't have made that pick, but we'll see. So they took Kendrick Green out of Illinois, and this is a player I really liked. And I know there's some Steelers fans and writers and whatnot saying he's going to be the next great Steelers lineman. He's got that potential. You know, he's got a lot of good potential, but like with some of these other guys, he's going to be forced into a situation where he's going to have to play a lot, probably start. My guess would be that they're going to have him play center. I could be wrong. But with Pouncey leaving, I think Green's going to step into that role. Like I said, I could be wrong. But he's, we'll see there. I think the inexperience and, you know, asking him to take such a big part in the offense is going to be the question mark there, like with these other guys I had listed down. And they drafted, obviously, many other guys and whatnot, but I just wanted to specifically talk about these three. And I think the Steelers draft as a whole, I would give them maybe a C+. I just think where they picked guys versus the talent that was there, it was all right. You know, I think Najee is the only one on this list that I think is a for sure really, really good Pro Bowl level player. Now, a value pick they got really late, Quincy Roche out of Miami, I really like that pick. I was hoping the Browns would take him. So it kind of frustrates me that the Steelers were able to snag him so late. But, it is what it is. And I think the thing with the Steelers, it's really all down to Big Ben, right? Because Big Ben was coming back from the injury last year and pretty much showed everybody that he'll be fine. Like, he was fine at the beginning of the year, and he did all right. And as the season went on, more and more and more, it went the other way. And the reality is, he's 39 years old. He's not a young quarterback, right? And he's taken so much injuries and so much just getting banged around because of your offensive line in the state that it's in. I just don't know what to expect from Big Ben. I think the Steelers could be in a similar situation like last year where they start off pretty all right and they look good. Maybe not putting the W's up on the board, but they're going to be competitive. They're going to be a team that's going to look good. And as it goes on, I think it could fall apart. Now, they didn't draft quarterback. I thought they should have. I thought they should have signed Jamie Newman. I think that was a perfect situation. Guy goes undrafted. You bring him in. Now, I know, yeah, cool. They got Dwayne Haskins. They have Mason Rudolph. They have Dobbs. Okay. Do you believe that Mason Rudolph is your future? Because if you do, I'm going to laugh at you because he's not a good quarterback. He's a backup. Sorry. He's a backup. They're guys who are backup quarterbacks in the NFL. And I know what some of you are saying, oh, well, Baker's one. No, you're an idiot. Mason Rudolph is not that great. I know there's some Steelers fans who love him. You're allowed to have your opinion, like I said, but he's not a guy you're going to feel good about as your starter. Dobbs, same thing. Dwayne Haskins, I think, is your best bet as far as hope here. Haskins, I think, still has the talent, and I think he still can be a good player, but he has just got to get focused up and get coached up. And for the Steelers, I don't know if they can wait on that because I don't know how long it'll take. Dwayne Haskins, I thought coming out of high school, coming out of college, was going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the draft. I had really high expectations for him. But, and I've talked about it, the one place I didn't want him to go was the Pittsburgh Steelers just because I think he's going to fit the offense. But I think it's a work in progress. So when you look at this quarterback situation, I think there's question marks. I really do. And I don't know what the future looks like. And when I mean future, I mean like throughout the season. Like, I don't know if Big Ben is going to be a good enough quarterback to be your starter through some of these games. I worry of him falling apart. And I could be wrong there. Y'all are going to yell at me in the comment section, I'm pretty sure. But I think it's just a real concern to have. And you look at the last part here. Their schedule, toughest in the NFL. You win the AFC North last year. And now you're playing the toughest schedule. There's a lot of teams on here that in the whole AFC North anyway, but you could have some lucky breaks, right? Who knows what the Bears are going to do with Justin Fields? There's some other question marks and whatnot, but I just think that the Steelers either are going to fall apart quickly or they're going to hang around. I see the Steelers. It's so hard because I really don't know what to expect because last year I expected them to be really bad. And they obviously weren't early on, and then it fell apart. I think it's going to be the same situation, just happened earlier. And even though I think they're going to be good to start, doesn't mean they're going to get wins. This schedule is not easy. So we'll see. I think you're looking at like 8 and 9. I think they're just going to be a middle of the road type team. And I know y'all are going to be mad at me, but I think the Steelers this year are going to be a team that's competitive because of their defense. You're getting Devin Bush back, and you're going to be able to do some different things. But I just don't think you're looking at a really good season this year. I'm going to be honest with you. I think honestly, if you're a Steelers fan, you should be really worried about the Bengals, because I think the Bengals can be as good as the Steelers this year. And that's not because of anything really different. You know what I mean? I think the Bengals are finding out who they are, and the Steelers are going the opposite way. I think they're trying to figure out if they can still be the same. I have concerns. I know y'all are going to be so upset with me. Go ahead. I don't care. I think the division is really down to the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. And we'll see. Okay? We'll see. Things can change. I could be wrong. We'll see. I saw a podcast by, I guess, 2 Steelers fans. I had somebody, I can't remember who it was, say that the one played for the Steelers or whatever. But they were like the most biased fan podcast I've ever seen in my life. Like, they acted like the Steelers were going to win the Super Bowl next year. Like I said, if you're that person, you are going to be furious with me here. But I'm being real with you. I think you guys had a rough offseason. Maybe not rough, average offseason. You got a lot of question marks, and you got to look at reality. And the reality is you got a tough schedule, and you have a quarterback who's older, and you don't know there. And I know you can look at it as, oh, well, Ben led a team without a running game to whatever their record was. Cool. How long did that last? Because it didn't last the whole season. And that's your problem. So let me know your thoughts. How good do you think the Steelers are going to be this year? And we'll see you in the next video. Bye.